Hi, welcome to Non-Doctors. I'm Liz Mealy.
I'm Maria Shahada.
How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm tired.
It's
It's funny.
it's because you're in LA. It's 8 a.m. for you.
It
You
is.
just got there yesterday, so you're still on New York time, but I guess that doesn't.
But I went to bed at LA late. Like I went to bed at 1 a.m. still, which is my normal New York going to sleep time. So I just this is still 8 a.m. to me.
This is actually ideal for me because like 8 a.m. Liz is just more subdued, a little more chill.
Yeah, or I don't fight. I feel like this is if we were in like a real relationship, this is when you would be like, "Hey, all my girlfriends are going to sleep over and we're going to drink wine really loud and if you could just leave for the weekend, that'd be great." And the boy just goes, "Yeah, it's fine."
Right, whatever.
And
Okay.
I
Is
don't
this
have
what you
any
woke me up
negotiation.
for? I'm going back to bed.
Yeah. Um I'm just like it's cold. It's not even the like my glasses are on because I was too cold to move and put in my contacts. Like, and that's crazy because I just came from 20-degree weather and it's probably like 55, but there's no adjustment of heat in LA. Like my sister's like, here's a space heater. And I was like, that's I
Did
don't
we talk about the space heater ordeal in LA last time, or was that because I know
I
like
don't
because when I first got to LA, the place I stayed at, and I was by myself and I didn't know anyone, and I was like, there was no heat, there was just a space heater, and it's cruel because it's like,
Oh yeah, we did because you have to stay in that area. Like
yeah,
that's but even like my sister already left for work and she was like, "How'd you sleep?" And I was like, "I was really cold." I was like, can I buy you a blanket?" And she's like, "Oh, you can have the space heater." And I was like, "What about like isn't that expensive? Like why why does LA do this to people and
plus you're not
pretend
supposed
like it
to,
doesn't get cold?"
yeah, I know, plus you're not supposed to sleep with space heaters on. And
Yeah,
what do
they're
they not
pretty
have
sh
heating?
no, I guess not. I'm looking at a box that looks like it's a radiator, but I don't know. Maybe it's decoration. I don't know.
There must be heating. I don't understand that at all.
But remember you stayed in that place. It was like one of the apartments I liked the best where it was like palm trees in the middle of the building.
Hmm.
And um I remember being cold there and you were like, "Oh, I can turn on the heat, but it doesn't do anything."
Really?
I was pretty sure that was the place. That was like
That place had like central heating. I don't know. I don't know if it's that place.
I remember it did nothing,
I'm pretty sure that was like the one in West Hollywood.
maybe. It's just so weird to me because it's like I just came from 20-degree weather. Like this is not the right response. And I brought appropriately 55-degree cold. I don't think I'm resilient. Like I'm going to be the first to die. I think that's right. Like I think that's from finding out like all the issues I have plus the fact that like the world's getting hotter slash colder and I'm just like I just need to cram in everything I need to get done in the next 10 years because
Yeah. Well, I think you're very resilient. I think physically you're a wimp.
I I will take it. That is a nicer assessment than I would have given myself. Yeah, I don't and I you know me, I fall apart when I'm cold. I just get real bitchy.
Yeah.
Actually, me being distant is a way of trying to like combat the bitchiness.
Yeah.
But
You're like, I don't want to yell at you because I know somewhere in my heart I love you, but right now, so I'm just gonna
I'm
distance myself.
yeah, I'm just gonna walk away slowly.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I when I got here, it was like 70 degrees, and I went to a coffee shop and I got a bunch of work done, and then I was walking back and it lost like 5 degrees, and I was like, I love sweatshirt weather, and I got to put my sweatshirt on, and I love putting on my little beanie, and so it's just like there is like a perfect like as the day changes in LA, and it's like that's where I'm gonna be my most confident, but waking up to being cold when I have heat at my old apartment is like,
Yeah.
no, no,
Not having it.
not having it.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm sure like 4 days into LA, I'll be like, I don't want to go home.
Yeah, I know. Well, tell you, I wish I was there with you. Um, but it makes me happy to know that it's cold. I'm sorry. Like, but like all my
That's fine.
pictures of you in LA are like, it's just like sunshine, you get in a tan, you're by the beach, you have a convertible. And now that I
Oh
know the
no,
reality, I feel better. But
I'll be standing in that one patch of sun on the sidewalk crying, and I'll
yeah,
send you that picture.
yeah. Do you ever see that Portlandia sketch about them chasing the sun? It's
No.
just a bunch of hipsters in a park and they're all in the patch of sun and they're like playing like with a beach ball and like grilling and stuff, but then the sun moves and they're like, it's over there. And then they have to like pack up and run over there and they keep doing that throughout the sketch. It's so funny.
I do that like quintessential cat thing, which is like cats love to like there'll be like a little bit of light coming through a window and they sleep in that heat and that light. But like I'll be like, I don't know, my sister will be in a store or something and I'll be waiting for her and I'll be cold. So I'll stand weird on a weird part of a sidewalk where the sun is. And so my sister's like, why are you standing over there? And I'm like, the sun. The sun. Like, but it's just, I don't know, especially as somebody that runs outside and always is, I'm always meeting my running buddy. I'm always just chasing the sun in that sense, just trying to find it. But I look like a lost child and I'm just like, no,
Just shivering alone.
I didn't dress appropriately.
People are like throwing change at you. And you're like, I'm just cold.
Yeah. And you're just like, oh, this really works. I made rent. Yeah, I feel a little beat up. It is even my sister said yesterday, she's like, it's kind of crazy that you like flew in and then you just go and do a show. And I was like, I didn't for this situation because they're not putting me up. I could have came in at any time and I would have, but Carmen had a birthday party that I wanted to go to. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'm just gonna have to suffer and it's worth the friendship. But it would have been nice to acclimate because I really was like
I
and
remember on
then
the military tours, it would always be like that. It was like,
yes.
I'd always look for the days that like we get to just a day of rest. But when they weren't there, I'm like, what are you doing to us?
Yeah.
Because we're flying to like 50 cities in 3 days. And then it's just like, we're going to land and then we're running to the gig.
Yeah.
And then you
When
don't
it
get to sleep. We go to the next place.
when it was a military flight and it felt like it was less um stressful flying, you did have to get there pretty early, but like I just didn't feel like you were going to be harassed the same way that you are at a like a regular airport. I felt a little more confident. Or like we took a bus, like we were in Italy. This was God, like 8 years ago. And you went it was like we flew to Italy and then they put us on like almost like like a Greyhound kind of bus and took us from different parts to Italy. And it was awesome. Like legit think
Oh yeah, I
like
got to do the bus through Europe. That was great. We had a German bus driver and we tried to play word Cards Against Humanity with him and he couldn't understand the humor in it. He's like, why is this funny? And I'm like, okay.
legit amazing. We just, it's 4 people on a bus and we had so much space and we were like almost like little kids left unattended, just like running up and down the bus and like pointing at stuff and like sleeping on like 6 chairs and
Yeah.
like you know what I mean? Then we take breaks and then we would be like, come back in time and be like, catch me if you can. Like we were just literally people in our 30s and 40s being dumbasses.
Yeah. Yeah.
It,
That's great.
it was a real in Italy where you're just like, I'm just setting my people back.
Yeah. I remember us being in Italy and then like we were counting in Italian, like Uno. I don't even know how to count in Italian, but we were trying to count in Italian. And I just realized like how dumb we sounded. Like if there were a group of tourists in America going 1, 2, 3.
And then trying to be impressed.
Yeah.
Man, I really having like how tourists see you glasses would be like the worst. I don't think I would ever travel.
No, definitely not.
Announcements.
Yeah.
Patreons, people that support us. We are so grateful. Thank you to everybody that has joined our Patreon. If you don't know, you can get stickers, you can get weekly bonuses, you can get monthly bonuses, you can control our Googles, you could be a Google guest. We have our stand-up on there that you can get a signed copy of my book. There's tons of rewards and bonuses, and you can join at patreon.com/2nondoctors.
Yeah. And you can follow us on the socials. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at 2nondoctors. It's the number 2 full word doctors. and on Instagram at TuneOnDRS. And if you have time and you're feeling like you're, if you have time and you're feeling kind, you can leave us a rate and review on Apple Podcasts, because it helps us out a lot. We love to hear the reviews when they're nice. And we share them on our socials, and we get really excited. So, and thanks to everyone who's left reviews. Personal announcements. Do you have a bunch of tour dates you want to?
Yeah, you want me to start?
Yeah.
In February on Valentine's Day, I'll be in Raleigh. The day after, I'll be in Charlotte. Later in February, I'll be in Hartford, and then my European tour is on.
Woohoo!
So woohoo! So I get to see Maria, most important. But I will be in Utrecht, Antwerp, Prague, Vienna, Berlin, London. Most of the tickets are up. I think I have to, by this time this comes out, all the ticket links will be up on my website. And then when I get back, I'll be in Syracuse, Boston, a bunch of dates in Michigan, and Atlanta later in the summer.
You're in Brighton. I got a few dates coming up. February 12th, I'll be at Secret Comedy Club. And then March 12th and, March 4th and 5th, I'll be at Comedia. I just feel like I need to say something, because you always have like this long ass scroll of places, and I'm just sitting here and I'm like,
to tell people where you are.
Here's some stuff. I'll be a Top Secret at some point, and then I'm looking for my next.
I feel pressured, and you'll be like, you're just like, I'll be practicing in my room. I'm writing stuff. You can come watch.
Honestly, I've been kind of taking a break from stand-up. I've needed it, and it actually goes along with our topic. So that's where I'm at.
All right. Fan mail?
Yeah.
Awesome. It's in the Google Doc. Will you read it? Sweat.
Okay, this one was on YouTube. It doesn't say who it's. Oh, it's from Mason on YouTube. Yeah. It says they wrote in about our episode about hoarding personality, and they say one thing that really isn't discussed about with hoarding personality is this: the more people you have in your life, the more people you have to check your thinking. Check is in quotes. For example, if you're collecting something, a friend may say, "Do you really need another one?" This might be just enough of a stopper to keep you from hoarding in milder cases. However, the deeper you get, really with anything, the harder it is to pull yourself out.
I also think thank you, Mason. I also think in general, the more people that check in on you, the more that see it before it gets worse. Because think about it. If you have 7 friends, you guys all go to each other's places, or you drop each other off, whatever it is, there's somebody that starts to see the beginning of chaos, like the beginning of a problem. The same way that if you are becoming an alcoholic or sinking deeper in depression, when you actually have a real group of friends or a close-knit family or whatever it is, somebody sees the early signs of it. And especially if it's a close enough relationship where somebody can be like, "Hey man, what's going on here?" So it's like, clearly stopping something before it gets worse is always a much easier, as opposed to, like we talked about with the 5th level of hoarding, where it's like no one can live in that house. It is uninhabitable. So, I mean, I think I think what's difficult though is it's this weird catch-22 where it's just like a strong support system stops you becoming having a deeper problem. And you're like, yeah, but most people that develop a problem, not most people, but a lot of people that develop a problem, or a problem gets worse, is when they start to feel disconnected from their support system or didn't have one to begin with.
Yeah. And you've tried to do this with my spending, where we'll be out and you'll be like, "Maria, do you need this right now?" And I'll be like, "Yes." And you're like, "Come on." And I'm like, "Okay, well, let's come back in 2 hours. And if I still want it, I'll get it." But I'm going to get that thing. I'm just going to wait till you leave.
And that's fine. And at least we've put some parameters on it. And you have told me, unless it's a lie, that it has helped in certain situations, that it has paused some of your spending.
Yeah, it has. You have helped. But I don't think it addresses why I feel the need to spend like that,
Oh no, of course. And don't get me wrong, I do the same thing. I've been immensely sad and I can see my spending going up, or I've been immensely sad and I've been eating garbage. I mean, I'm glad the lighting's horrible, but my entire chin is all acne. Like, it is the worst acne I've had in probably years. And it's all because I've been eating garbage because I'm sad. So it's like everybody has their coping mechanisms, whether they're healthy or not. It's just about if you stay in them and it
Yeah.
becomes a larger problem. Because I do think, and I don't know if we really covered it in the hoarding episode, but we've covered it in probably every mental disorder that we've talked about, which is that a lot of times something spurs this to kind of click on, and it becomes this disorder because of a loss, because of depression, because of what have you. So I think, like Mason said, a good support system can kind of at least take you out of it a little bit, but it has to be a great support system to really stop something from progressing really.
Do you actually feel like so like outside friends can stop something like that? Like if you're spiraling into a depression, I do feel like it ultimately has to come to like for alcoholism, for instance. Okay, like the more you drink, like others can tell you, you know, hey, you've been drinking a lot lately, is something going on, and you can talk it through and stuff. But like if you're really like kind of getting deeper and deeper into alcoholism, is there a strong enough support system that can stop that, or does it just have to come from you?
I mean, that's a good question, and it's hard because they often say the opposite of addiction is connection. Like
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, there's people would be like, why, my good friend became an alcoholic, and believe me, I know alcoholics, but it's not like being a good friend. It's the ability for that person to feel like they can connect to you, or if it's that ability for that person to feel connected enough to themselves that they can open up to you. So it's hard because it's not just, well, I was a good friend, I called them every day and I cared about them. It's not just, it's about the ability to actually feel like, hey, I'm not okay, and I'm using alcohol to numb myself out, or to not be present, or so it's like I don't think it's not easy enough just to say, well, like, I'm a good friend, therefore it's not going to happen. It's equal parts the ability to be there for somebody, but also the ability for them to be self-aware, understand what's going on, and be open enough to be connected to.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes me think of, like, how UK outlets, you have to turn them on. You can't just plug something in and
Oh
have
yeah.
your, so it's
Oh
just like,
yeah.
so it kind of almost feels like that, where it's just like, well, I have 17 outlets, but none of them are turned on, so nothing's going to work.
Wow,
So
that's such an excellent analogy.
thank you so much. I'm so tired.
That's incredible.
So I think that's where it's tricky, because clearly tons of people have, think of the opioid epidemic, where it's tons of people where they're sisters and brothers and parents, and they fell into it, but it's a powerful drug, and they probably didn't feel like they could be open about it or understand it. And like I don't think it's just as simple as connection, because it's just easily as much as how the person feels about themselves and how the person feels like they can connect to other people. I'll say this, like, there have been some really, really dark times in my life, and it's been my close friends that have been able to point it out. Like, I got into therapy, and we've talked about it before, because I was deeply, deeply, deeply depressed. And it was my boyfriend at the time and my friend Amanda that both separate times within like a month were like, you don't seem okay. And I feel like you might need therapy. And I was not okay with being told that. I was very upset that people noticed my crying. But really the thing that switched on is I don't know where this mentality comes from, but I was like, if my two favorite people told me they're worried about me, maybe there's some validity to that. And
Yeah.
that's what made me go to therapy, because it's like the ability to see that the people that love me are concerned, and that this isn't an attack, this is them worrying. But yeah, I clearly I'm always going to be pro connection, but I do think you can only do so much.
Right.
Not to say don't try.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Mason.
Thanks, Mason.
Googles.
Yeah.
Can I go first?
Yeah.
It's not that it's like all that interesting. If anything, it's kind of sad. What does it mean if tooth pain goes away on its own? Cool. So,
Got a super tooth. It just cured itself. Go
yeah.
on.
Well, I kind of knew the answer's not great. Um, so my upper molar was like really hurting last week, but Tots was sick, and I was like, I don't have the mental capacity to deal with both of these things. Also, I don't have a dentist. I finally like got my teeth cleaned, I don't know, a couple months ago, but it's with a dentist I hate. And so my parents finally went away from that dentist that they hated. We've just gone to a dentist we didn't like for like 30 years. Um, and I barely even went to this. I go to him every 5 years. So it's like he's barely my dentist. I don't know why looking for a new doctor or somebody in the city is so stressful, but it is, especially when dentists kind of feel like mechanics, where they're going to be like, oh, you need a whole new mouth, and you're like, okay, I guess.
Yeah.
So I basically just decided to ignore it because one wasn't that bad, and B, I didn't have the mental capacity to deal with a tooth dying while Tots wasn't great. So I ignored it, and I was like, this will go away or I'll deal with it. And it went away. And then I was like, oh no, that doesn't seem good either. It's like, oh God. Okay. If you have a mild toothache that vanishes on its own or that is intermittent, it is possible that you have a small cavity. The cavity may not yet be deep enough to cause continuous pain. And then they say gum recession, which exposes the sensitive tooth of teeth, could also be to blame. But I kind of read a bunch of stuff, and they were kind of like, you have a cavity. It's just not a problem yet. And if you ignore it, it will be a problem. And it's just like, I now know from somebody that's had 2 root canals, if you fix a cavity, it's cheaper. If you ignore it, it becomes a root canal, which is several appointments and thousands of dollars.
Oh God.
And that should be, as an adult that makes adult decisions, motivation to look up a dentist and go. And I hope that the next time we talk, I do that. But
You want me to like check in and make sure you've done that?
kind of,
Yeah, I will.
I really am worried that I'm just going to pretend it didn't happen.
Well, it feels like it's easy to do if it's intermittent, or if it goes away, it's like, okay, it's fine. I'm
And
fine now.
I don't know if you do this with your body, but like when I'm on the road, I'm like, I'm going to check in on this when I get home. And then I come home and I'm just like, I'm home and nothing matters. Like,
Yeah. I think the NHS, like, because I immediately like want to call my doctor as soon as anything's wrong. And the NHS kind of has a safeguard against hypochondria in that they give you an appointment that's like 3 weeks away. So by the time you're like 3 weeks later, you're like, oh, I'm fine.
yeah,
But if it's still there, then they want to talk to you.
Yeah. And you're like, sorry, I know you're super busy. I was just sad that day.
Yeah. Just wanted to talk.
I just wanted a friend. I was like, my doctor will talk to me. Yeah, I do think it's also like, I ate a lot of sugar during the pandemic, and I did not brush my teeth with the frequency that I once did. And I kind of was waiting for this to happen. Like, genuinely was like, there's some cavities, and 2020 made some cavities.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That
So
sucks.
just putting some money aside for my mistakes.
You don't have
What's
dental insurance? I don't know how that. No.
No.
Christ.
I have to look. Maybe my insurance has something, but I can't imagine it's anything real.
Okay. I hope it's okay.
Thank you.
My Google was tooth related also.
Oh, so exciting. I might
How
sneeze.
fun. Huh?
Okay, sorry. It still might happen.
Dude, I know the feeling. I hate it.
Yeah.
We could take a second because your face is strained.
Yeah, just like it looks like you're about to hit me, and I'm just like,
I'm like,
what did you Google? I think I'm okay.
All right, we'll start over. So my Google was also tooth related. Yeah, my Google is, can you kiss with Invisalign?
Oh, yours is adorable.
Yeah, I know. I almost feel bad about that. I'm like, can I just continue making out? And you're like, I have to get drilled.
Yeah. I'm losing all my mouth.
I have to pay thousands of dollars. And I'm like, well, I do too, but
Yeah,
it's financed. But yeah, so I just wanted to know like how that was going to affect the kissing situation. Invisalign is like, you can fucking kiss, get it, girl. And then I was like, well, I don't want to hear from Invisalign. So, but
Yeah.
Reddit, most people were like, yeah, Yeah. No difference. I do everything with Invisalign except eat and drink coffee. Some people said like they take the tray out, but the buttons, you get buttons.
Yeah.
They worry that that will, hurt their partner in some way, but the partner always says they can't tell the
No.
difference.
So as
Um,
somebody that has made out with Invisalign,
well,
as an expert,
I was gonna refer to you if I
oh,
could just finish what I wanted to
you're talking
say.
about buttons. Continue.
No, I mean that's essentially it. Is that most people are like, yeah, it's fine. But I was gonna ask you because I know you had it.
I would say, honestly, everything like there's like a week adjustment because my biggest, like, if we were doing this podcast when I got Invisalign, my biggest thing was like, can I do stand up with Invisalign?
Yeah.
Like, I was so worried about like talking. So I would say like the first day felt more weird, and it was more like I was very aware of it on stage. But very like you don't get Invisalign and just start slurring. Like it really was maybe like an hour or two adjustment of just feeling like something's in your mouth and weird. Um, but it's the awkwardness of taking things out. And then with making out, um, I don't really feel like there was any issue. And then when I would make out and I didn't have the Invisalign in, really, when you don't have the Invisalign in, those little buttons or whatever, sometimes they can just agitate the inside of your mouth because they're just kind of like rubbing up against it. So did you have real braces?
No.
So when you had real braces, they would give you like this kind of wax. And if the braces were kind of fucking up the inside of your mouth, you put the wax on it and it kind of protects you from the metal or whatever. And my dentist gave me wax for that same reason with the buttons. And it didn't happen all the time, but sometimes, and you're supposed to be wearing it like 22 hours a day. So you're very rarely supposed to be agitated by the buttons because you're supposed to be wearing the Invisalign. But I've had it where like for whatever reason I couldn't wear it for the hour, and I've had to put like a little bit of wax over that stuff because it can just like agitate the inside of your mouth.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't feel, I felt like while I was straightening my teeth, I could do all the things anybody else could.
One guy said, I think it was a guy, I don't know, said that it takes him out of it a little bit when he goes, because of the lisp you get, or you can get, when he's like, oh, yes. And then he's like, oh my God.
But honestly, I felt like it affected my talking for like an hour, and then you get used to it.
Okay. Because I did run into a comedian and she was talking, and I could actually tell she had Invisalign in. Maybe it wasn't like Invisalign, maybe it was some other brand, but it seemed
If you
really
get,
obvious. And she was speaking with a lisp. And I was like, oh my God, am I going to?
you can see, I mean, from like, if we were talking right now, you wouldn't be able to see it. But like, I had a fan come up to me yesterday, and I could see his Invisalign, but you have to be close to somebody.
Yeah.
If you're standing in front of somebody, they're gonna know you have Invisalign. But
Yeah.
any other situation, they're not.
Okay.
Yeah, I had it for 8 to 9 months, and the only thing that bothered me is I was dating, and you would sit down, and then you would immediately, now people could just go wash their hands, but I would like get up and be like, I gotta go take my Invisalign out. So then you go to a bathroom and you take it out and whatever. But then sometimes I would just, and then you start dating somebody and you're just like, you're just hands in your mouth. Like, and then I only started getting cavities after Invisalign. So I would say my biggest advice with Invisalign is bring a toothbrush and toothpaste everywhere. Brush your teeth after every meal, because that's how I started getting cavities.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
That's something I'm like really scared to mess with because I've never had a cavity. And it's like, if my mouth is like good, like
Yeah,
why am I fucking
I
with
really
it?
think it changed. It because if you have any food there, you're just pressing it up and it's like fermenting in your mouth. So, but I was like rinsing my mouth, like I would rinse my mouth and I would rinse my Invisalign and I put it back in. And I think they did not stress to brush your teeth every time you ate before you put it in. And I think that's the worst thing you could, I think that's the conspiracy theory. I think you legit have to brush the fuck out of your teeth every time.
Yeah. And they're like, if you don't brush, I get to see more of you.
Yeah,
So,
kind of,
great for me.
kind of. Yeah. Let's get personal.
Uh-huh.
What do you hate to eat? I think that's such an interesting question as an adult, because as a kid, it feels like you're forced to eat stuff, but there are things that we eat as an adult that we hate.
Yeah. Um, Nothing immediately comes to mind, but I know there's something I hate to eat.
So it's whenever something's in something else that I like. So I hate lima beans. I hated them as a kid. I think I hate them even more as an adult. So the borscht at Veselka is like one of my favorite borsches. But they not only do they have lima beans, they're like fucking huge, they're like the size of a quarter. And I'm like, I don't even remember as a kid them being that big. And
May
I
not be
will fish.
lima beans. What are lima beans? Broad beans, like those gigantic beans?
They're like flat. They look like a typical bean, and they're like light green and they're flat, and they taste like chalk.
Yeah,
That's
is
just
that
a
what you
fact.
don't like about it? The texture, because it is kind of
It's
like
like dry
yeah,
for no. It's like dry for no reason.
yeah.
Um,
I had a dish with that in there recently, and I was like, I don't think I like these beans. You know, like they require too much of me. Like I don't want to
no,
think that much about you.
it is. It's the worst bean. Um, I take them. I scoop them out, and then I'm almost always with Burkash at Veselka, and then I give them my lima beans, and that's how you know you're either you've been friends too long. Or okay, so the other thing I hate is when so as somebody that started to cook, I've been cooking more, and so most of the recipes I've been cooking, they make they if you want the beef to be the steak, it would be medium rare. So I just cook it the way they tell me to cook it, but I've realized I don't like medium rare. Like I don't like rare. It's too chewy for me, and it really takes me out of it, and I just and sometimes I was like, oh, maybe I don't like it because I'm very chewy in front of somebody and maybe I'm insecure. No, by myself, eating it, not okay with it. Like genuinely just not happy and like just chewing and just I was like, how is this pleasurable?
To see you like
So
sighing as you're chewing, like it's taking so long. You're like,
I don't like it's like chewy and tough and like
how's it
so
tough? Oh, I see
I
what you're
don't
saying. Like if it's too rare, yeah, I gotcha.
I didn't like it. So I then cooked it again and I did it medium. And it was perfect. And it's like, oh, that took 36 years. I didn't know that about myself. I would just, somebody would ask you, how do you want this? And I would say medium, but I don't think I knew what I was saying. It's so weird to actually cook and be like, oh, I know what the inside of it looks like. I know what the texture is. I know that I like it. But I was like, oh, I like it medium.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. What was the original question?
What do you hate to eat?
I think, and like, I'm sure it's one of those things when the podcast ends, I'm gonna have like 500 other
Of course.
answers, but I hate eating, and I love the flavor of tom yum soup because there's about 50 things in tom yum soup you're not supposed to eat. Like, or it feels
Yes.
that way. There's like the
Yeah,
bay
yeah, yeah.
leaf, the lemongrass, and I'm like trying to get around the things that are not edible to get to the things that are edible. And then by the time I realized there was only like 3 pieces of shrimp and I paid £7 for it, I'm just like angry. It's a delicious broth. It's so good. It's such a good soup, but
It's one of my favorite soups, but also
read
on
it.
that level, when they put shrimp in with their tails in a soup. What are we doing here? It's hot. I'm not putting my finger in soup. Like makes me crazy. Even when they do it in like fried rice or whatever, you're like, what is going on? Like, is there some rule that a shrimp's butt can never be exposed? Like, or like, when you get like um a mattress or like a comforter and they have those giant tags and like only to be removed by the purchaser. And you're
Yeah.
like, is that what fucking shrimp tails are? Like can only be removed by the customer.
I think that when you cook shrimp in the shell, it keeps the flavor and maybe moisture. And I think maybe it's kind of a halfway, like it's a compromise of like not wanting to make you do all the work, but you can do some of the work so that there's still a flavor. Or it's
No,
laziness on their end. I don't know.
I don't accept it. I don't accept that answer. Even if it's true, I don't accept it. Why am I putting my hands in soup?
Yeah.
This is nuts. This is nuts behavior and I won't accept it.
I also hate to eat vegan cheese.
Why do you hate eating vegan cheese?
It's not for me. It's like I tried to like substitute vegan cheese for Johnny and I make burritos a lot. I tried to substitute vegan cheese once and I was like, no, this never again. Like I could probably do it on a burger where like I wouldn't notice it as much because there's so many things masking it, but like
Yeah.
it has to be masked.
Yeah, I did it for a while when I was on my paleo diet. But there was only one cheese I could have because almost all vegan cheese is yeast. Like it's yeast is so like, and that's why a lot of products that are like cheesy flavored, think like sour cream and onion, or like any kind of like chip flavor, it's not cheese, it's yeast. So I actually can't eat half of it because I physically can't. But there was one, it was like this one Daya brand, and it didn't melt, and I just accepted it. When you are desperate for something that is more flavorful than what you had, you make some desperate choices, but I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, like if I were a vegan, I could be like, okay, well, that's what I get. You know, I don't want to eat meat or animal byproducts. This is my option. Great, fine. But I'm not. So it's like, why am I doing this to myself?
Yeah. Why am I hurting myself?
Yeah.
All right. Topic.
Uh-huh.
Our topic this week is burnout.
Got
And then
notes.
did you yeah. Did you find out that burnout is a syndrome?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Because the thing I don't like about it, if I tell somebody I'm burned out, they're like, oh yeah, you know, get some rest, you know, but it doesn't really sound like anything, but it's bad. It's like on par with depression. And
Dude,
yeah.
100%. No,
Uh,
continue. That I agree.
so it feels like it's not taken very seriously, but like lately I've been feeling, and I think this is why I was like, how about we do this topic? But I've been feeling exactly this way. Like as I'm reading it, I'm like, yeah, yes, yep, that's
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah. You're just like, oh, I am the perfect person to make this presentation. Any
Yeah.
questions?
I thought I've just been lazy lately, and it turns out I have a syndrome.
I have a syndrome. So they tried. So it's funny. The Who announced in May 28th, I think, of 2019, which is
I call
crazy
it the
because
WHO too.
huh?
I think it's supposed to be like the WHO. I don't think you're just supposed to call it the WHO. Do people call it the WHO?
Yeah,
The World Health Organization?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And that's why it's really confusing because people are like, the band.
Yeah. And you're like, put it in context, God damn it. Why do I have to do everything?
Yeah. So the band, so they said March 28th in 2019 that they newly recognized burnout syndrome as like an occupational hazard. And what I find funny about that is like, we didn't even begin to understand how bad burnout could get with the pandemic. Like, it's so funny that like 2019, they're like, burnout is real and we need to talk about it. And then 2020 came and it's like, you don't even know. You don't even know what burnout's going to look like. But they kind of stress that it's not a medical condition, and that it's so like, because we've talked about it before, there's like disorders, and this is just like it is legit sparred from your activities at work. So it's, you know what I mean, like as opposed to something like we talk about clinical depression, it could be something that's genetic that gets spawned because of something that happens on the outside, or you could just be depressed, as opposed to, you don't just like wake up burnt out. It's a course of things that happen in your life and you start to become burnt out. But basically a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed is kind of how they describe it.
Can I read my definition? I really like this one website. I think it's this one that I liked better.
Okay.
It's burnout has been defined as a syndrome of emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and a sense of low personal accomplishment that leads to decreased effectiveness at work. And then they go through like 5 stages of burnout, which are great. Well, so like the first one's like the honeymoon phase. So that's when you like get a new job and you're like taking on things and you're excited and you're just like, oh, I'm going to be the best. They're going to love me. I'm going to be the best employee ever. And
I'm going to make real changes here.
Yeah, exactly. And you're just like, started a newsletter, everyone. No, like, what am I don't know what workplace people do, but
It's so funny. I was reading some of this and I was like, I've experienced it, but not on like this actual degree. And it was making me laugh, where they're just like, you're making friends, you're talking to people. And I'm like, oh,
but I think we do that in stand-up. Like, you know, I see this in a lot of newer stand-ups. They're like going to all the shows and introducing themselves, and they're like, everyone's going to know who I am. And I did that, you know, I was in New York, I was at all the shows, and I was like hanging out at the Comedy Cellar, and like, you know, just everything. I started a show. I had all of that, like new comic energy. And then the comedy world just slowly beats you down.
I almost think it quickly beats you down.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I think it's a little both, because you're resilient, and then you're like, all right, I got knocked down, I'm getting back up. That's stand up. That's what you're gonna bomb. And it's all, and then just after years, you're just like, I can't get back up.
Like, this is what we do. This is it.
Yeah, why do I do this? Yeah. So then you're more you're more productive and you're creative and et cetera. And like, it's great if you can stay in the honeymoon stage, but a lot of times they don't. So number 2, onset of stress. You gradually start to notice that some days are more stressful than others. You lack time for personal needs, and you start seeing your family and friends less. Your job might become the most important thing in your life. Some early signs of stress may start bothering you, manifesting as an inability to focus, headaches, anxiety, changes in appetite, and even high blood pressure, to name a few. And then from there, it moves on to chronic stress, which is a frequent experience of high stress levels, brings you into the stage of chronic stress, which you feel out of control and powerless. Your efforts don't seem to yield the same productive results as before. To avoid facing the pressure of your tasks, you may procrastinate. You might not be praised or acknowledged for your achievements, which can build up to a sense of incompetence and failure.
Which is interesting because I think the chronic stress is where America specifically is like, yeah, that's life.
Yeah.
Like, don't you feel like people are like, yeah, I just don't feel motivated and I'm constantly overwhelmed, and they're just like, I don't know, man. Like that's what having a job is in America.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose so. And then maybe people just don't realize like it's not great to
Normal.
feel that way. And if it continues, which it likely will, if you don't even know that that's something you should be doing something about, it can lead to the next stages. But I think there's a little bit more on this one.
Yeah.
You may find yourself getting ill more frequently, and you can't seem to regulate your emotions anymore. You become aggressive, resentful, or sad, and you may deny the problems and distance yourself from colleagues and social life. And in extreme cases, you might self-medicate with alcohol and drugs. Then there's the burnout stage, which is you haven't addressed anything so far because you're like, that's just life. The continuous sense of failure and powerlessness eventually leads to the feeling of despair and disillusionment. You don't see a way out of the circumstances and become indifferent towards your work. And this is the stage I think I'm at. Like I was telling Johnny yesterday, I was like, I just don't see what my future is going to look like. I don't see a path. Like I don't see it anymore. I don't feel like I'm striving towards something. And I just don't feel like I have anything left to give. And like, then this is like, yeah, you just don't feel, apart from feeling constantly fatigued, having ongoing digestive problems, chronic headaches, you may also experience behavioral changes, self-doubt, pessimistic outlook. You become bitter, right? Like you just,
Yeah.
it just ends there. Okay. And then there's habitual burnout. And this is when you don't manage to recover from burnout, and attempts to bring yourself back to normal is more challenging. It affects not just your career, but personal relationships. You lose joy in your hobbies. You don't feel like doing anything. You always feel sad and depressed, and you need outside help to overcome the burnout.
What I find interesting is that, like, because we've talked about depression a bunch, is that clearly this is a form of, this can lead to depression. But what happens often is that, you're depressed, and then somebody goes, well, you're depressed, and there's no like through line of how you got here. So even if you start to feel better, you're only going to come back here because nothing was actually resolved. So if your work really is causing you to feel this way and causing you to feel burnout, and you don't change that, you're just always going to hit this depression wall.
Yeah. It's really kind of self-fulfilling because you don't have the motivation, you just don't have the motivation to like try to renew it. Like I know what I could and should be doing for myself, but I'm at the point of like, I don't have it in me to do it. I just don't like, I think I don't know if it's just like a matter of taking a few more weeks off and take a break, but like, I mean, look, I know I'm a stand-up comedian. I know that I work 10 minutes a night, but it's also like, I know that people have more stressful jobs in life, but it's also something that there's no clear path. There's no, like, this is what you do to get to the next thing to like, and it's a
That's
thing. It's like, I'm working all day to get the gigs to like, so it's not, there's no ever turning off is the thing.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, don't dismiss the fact that someone that gets a paycheck every week knows they're going to get money every week. Like, you have to do just enough to at least maintain the job and not get fired, but there's no maintaining in stand up. If I stop putting in my avails, if I stop writing, if I stop looking for bookers or whatever, I don't make any money. And we're constantly being replaced by the younger, hotter, more successful comics. So you can't just ever relax and rest on your laurels because somebody's going to come in and tell you what you've accomplished isn't valid anymore. Or is it
Right.
like, I remember very quickly somebody's like, your TV credit becomes obsolete within a couple of years, and or if the TV show goes off the air. So like, I would go on the road and somebody would be like, I remember when I was hosting, I'd be like, oh, what do you want your credit to be? And they'd be like, Weekend at the Improv or something, like some show that was on in the 80s. And I was like, oh, I love stand-up and I didn't know that was a thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's interesting to me where I've often been on the other side of it, where I felt completely burnt out and would justify and be like, I don't feel like I can justify feeling this way. And that's where I'll defend you and be like, if this career is constant burnout, you can never stop. The opening line of my hour right now is like, I don't think a lot of people are going to agree with this, but I kind of needed a pandemic. I
Yeah.
was really tired.
Yeah.
And it's true. I mean, I remember we thought it was going to be 2 weeks off. I mean, I was very disappointed that I was leaving you and I was leaving Europe, but like, I immediately was like, this is kind of nice. Like, I was never going to, and so many comics said that. So many comics said I was never going to stop. And I was tired and I was overwhelmed and I wasn't even sure I wanted to be on this path anymore. And I was never going to stop. And then the world made me stop. And it really adjusted, I think, a lot of people in general of what they actually wanted to be doing and really focus on how they physically felt, because you don't even have time to know that you're depressed half the time. But it's so funny that the government's like, people aren't going back to their jobs, they're not doing this. And you're like, yeah, man, you gave them a second to realize they hate everything.
Yeah. Yeah. No shit. Of course they're not going back. Like if they, yeah. Yeah. But on the flip side, the lockdown was also not rest for anyone, because you're
Oh no,
still,
it's stressful.
yeah.
Absolutely stressful. It's funny, if it was 2 weeks, I think we would have came out of this and been like, that was hard and so sad that people died. But you know what? That was a great paid vacation. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But after a couple of months, we're like, what the fuck is going on? And now 2 years later, everybody's like, I mean, I'm making a third of the money I made before. And even when I have a good month, I lost 2 gigs, I gained 1 gig. I gained 2 gigs, but I lost 4 gigs. Like, it's this, I've never lost so many gigs in my life. I've never gotten so many last minute gigs in my life. I have a friend that just had a baby and we're trying to figure out when I'm going to come visit. And I was like, if it doesn't stress you out, can I tell you the week of? Because I can't really turn down work right now, as opposed to right before the pandemic. I was at a place where I could be like, I'm taking the week off. I know when I'm making money and it doesn't scare me to take a week off, but it's not, there's zero consistency, and it's absolutely a different type of stress than what I was dealing with before.
Yeah, definitely. And actually the 2 weeks off that I've taken was kind of it wasn't relaxing, because that's money that I now don't have, and I had to make that decision, like I'm going to be out this amount of money. So I guess, like, somewhere in the back of my head, I'm feeling guilty and I'm feeling like I need to be working, and I'm really fucking myself over. I almost wish, like, stand-up had a paid vacation. Like, I wish that it was organized enough to give comedians like 2 weeks off paid somehow. I don't know. It's just,
I mean, the government giving me money was the closest I've ever had to a vacation.
yeah.
Seriously. What's interesting, and this is how I know that, like, I have workaholic tendencies, and I've been burnt out so many times and didn't know until something bad happened. So a great example is I toured all over Europe for that military tour we kind of talked about with the Italy thing. I did a 1.5-month military tour. Then I was in London for 6 weeks to prepare for Edinburgh. And then I was in Edinburgh for a month. And I came back and I was broke because of Edinburgh. And I had to start working immediately, and I was taking crazy gigs and I was driving back and forth. And a week after I got back, I did $4,000 of damage to my car. And it was a silly mistake because I was tired. And so I was already, like, financially fucked, and then I financially fucked myself more. And I remember just hysterically crying because I could not control my emotions. I was so tired. And I was like, I just worked my ass off for 3.5 months and I have almost nothing to show for it.
Fuck. Yeah.
And it ended up all kind of working out and stuff. Like, I was so desperate for money that I started asking friends for any kind of work. And that's how I ended up opening for Hurry for 3 years and it becoming some of the best years of my life of touring with a friend and having all these opportunities. It made me work harder in different areas. But I was so tired after that tour, and I was so exhausted from all the risk taking that I did. And I didn't make enough money to stop. And so I would say the last 10 years has been a series of like, go, 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 and then hitting a wall and something happening that made me stop.
Yeah.
And it is crazy that I was starting to head towards that again. And I do think the pandemic has started to reframe it a little bit for me, but I think everybody doesn't know they're burnt out until it's like, almost like what Mason said, when somebody taps them and it's like, hey, you're being crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
Or it's not even just that you're being crazy. It's just, maybe it's just like for me, I got an email that I just couldn't respond to. I just was like, I always respond to email. I don't have it immediately. It was an unpaid spot, but I didn't even have it in me to like say whether or not I could come.
say no.
What?
Just to say no. That's how you know you're
Yeah.
tired. You're like, I don't even have time to tell you no.
Yeah. I know it's like you would take it less personally if I would just respond. I just like, I'm like, but like I think it just kind of manifests and it doesn't mean that like you're so tired that you crash your car or like you're just so emotional, but it could just be like I don't care.
Yeah. And they talk about the physical, the emotional, and the behavioral signs. So there's all these, and I think it manifests differently in everybody. But what's interesting is I think what originally sparked this topic for us was, well, what is real recovery from burnout? And like, and what's interesting is I remember how you sparked it is you're just like scrolling on your phone for an hour on Instagram. So being brainless and being on Instagram, is that considered rest? And it's interesting because I wonder, I don't think it is, but I wonder if it depends on how the social media represents to you. So like, if my social media was just cat pictures and cat videos, I think there'd be a little bit of rest there. But because occasionally through my cat videos, I see somebody getting something on TV, or, you know what I mean? And it just takes me fucking out of it. And all of a sudden work is in my face again.
Yeah.
But a lot of what they suggest is completely getting rid of turn off your email, turn off your phone. They said turn off your computer. They said all electronics, but they never said TV, which I bet you 10, 15 years ago, they'd be like, TV, it rots your brain, da, da, da. And now they're just like, relax in front of some Netflix.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's what I was wondering. It was like, if I just brainlessly watch, like if I just binge watch a couple series, is that even relaxing? Is that the rest I need? Or does that not help? I deleted my apps off my phone, like the Instagram and Twitter and stuff. And I do visit them much less. I'm probably there like once, twice a day rather than constantly. It's like I go to it mindlessly. I open my phone and go right to it. And then I'll open it again and be like, I was just here. But so I do it less. But then I added words with friends and now I'm just constantly on that. Like, so I'm constantly just doing these word games. I'm like, is this rest? Am I just like, I don't know.
But it goes back to what's the different rest and numbing. Because the truth of the matter is, if you binge a show, you're numbing out. If you are, constantly scroll on TikTok or whatever, it's a form of just constant, like, maybe not adrenaline. I don't know what the right word is, but then also just like a form of numbing out. So like, I refuse to believe that if you don't meditate all day, you're not resting. I think that's kind of, but I do think like going for a walk, so I would first take yourself out of work. So something that's completely unwork related. If you go for drinks with a friend, if you go for a walk with a friend, go to watch a movie. I think these can all be really replenishing, but I think it's what you do next. So I think if you think an hour walk is going to rest you and then you go right into working 80-hour days or 80-hour weeks, is it really considered rest? But they do recommend things like exercise, and I mean, they always say work-life balance, and it's like, well, if I knew how to work-life balance, I would fucking do it. Like, I know nobody can tell you with your,
yeah, it feels so guilty just like hanging out with friends without like, wait, should we just do a show first and then go hang out? Like, just I exercise all the time. I don't find that to be restful. And it is yoga. Like they're like, do yoga. And I'm like, no, it's not restful. It's
You don't think your brain rests? Like I've noticed with exercise, I can't think about work because I'm so focused
actually, it
on.
does. You're right. I did, like, everything gets pushed out because I'm in so much pain holding a pose that it is kind of, maybe it is restful. Maybe I'd be in a much worse position if I didn't do yoga.
I absolutely think you would be.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, the exercise, and that's all good. I do sometimes meditate, but um
I think your game night that you used to do
oh
is
yeah,
probably,
I still do them.
yeah, because game night, because like it's funny. So I went to this dinner for Carmen's birthday, and it's I know all her friends, and you know what I mean, both comedy and non-comedy friends through the years, and it was just so nice to like catch up and eat dinner and be silly, and it's really almost like 2 years of catch up with a lot of these people. And I had no shows that night, and I was flying out to LA the next day, and it was like so rejuvenating.
Yeah.
And I know everybody's like, yeah, that's what socializing is. But like, again, I meet up with Carmen for dinner in between spots. So sometimes I'm stressed and looking at my watch to make sure, I leave on time for my spot, or, socializing is somehow fit in. And I, especially with our schedule, like a whole night of just,
Yeah, like,
this is the night.
yeah, like I could just do board games for a couple hours and then run off to do a spot, but that doesn't feel restful to me. And there's no point. Like I would rather like just have the evening to sit, relax, be with people. I love it so much. Like I think that's why I moved to London, besides the engagement, but like that's why I wanted to move to London, is because when I was living in LA, like I would come out there and then just people just gathered. They came out to shows, they showed their support, we'd go out to eat. And it just felt so fulfilling to just have this social life.
The
That I
amount of
didn't
hanging
really
out with
have,
people. Oh, sorry,
huh?
sorry.
That I
I was
didn't
gonna say
really
the amount of,
have in LA.
no, I'm sorry, that was me. No, I agree with that. And then also LA in general has that work, work, work kind of mentality. Or why are we talking if this isn't about work?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
what can you do to help me with
I think
work?
that's why I watched Emily in Paris, and France is so like with Americans, like the show portrayed French people to be very like boundary setting with Americans. Like we don't work on weekends. I know you guys just do constantly, but we have that time to actually rest. And I do think that that's like in other industries, it seems like to compete with other markets, people have to work more and more and more. And so it's just everybody keeping up with the Joneses. So like, it's like got to the point where Spain had to stop taking siestas or something, like it's just everyone like there are people, men in Korea having heart attacks at 48 because they smoke and they're overworked, or is
Yeah.
that Japan? But you know what I mean? Like these cultures that just kind of put all the emphasis on work and competing.
I mean, I think the same way that we've talked about setting boundaries with people, I think setting those boundaries with work is so hard. And I hired a woman to help me with my pitch deck for this pitch I was working on. And what I really appreciated about her is like we'd be emailing, and this is something I do. I go, hey, I email at weird hours because I have thoughts and I have a weird schedule. So I'm going to email you at 1 a.m. because I'm crazy, or I'm going to email you Sunday morning because I'm crazy. But that does not mean you need to respond to it. And it's not a pressure. And I was like, I just want to put that out there just because I email my agent Saturday morning, and I'm not asking them to do anything. I just can't, you know me, I'll forget. And what she was doing, and that's just a way for me to be like, I know this is crazy, but I'm not trying to make you work. And then she would be like, hey, I'm working on this today. I'm going to try to get it done today. If I don't, I will get to you on Monday. And like she would say the next time she's going to get to me. And I'm like, that's great. Enjoy your weekend. Or like she was having some health issues, and she's like, they kind of come sporadically. I think I'll be okay by the end of the day. I might not be. So this might not happen until Tuesday. And I go, take care of yourself. Thank you so much for letting me know. Because we were kind of on a timeline, but like she was very clear about when things were going to get done. So it didn't matter that she didn't respond for 4 days, because I knew she was going to get it done at this time. And I was like, oh, that's such a perfect communication compromise for working with anybody.
Oh yeah, totally. The girl who edited my album, like she would be like, hey, I'm here at this point, like, but like I will get to this and have it done by the weekend. And that would be totally fine. Then I would let it go. I'd be like, I know when it's gonna get done. But like if she wasn't in communication, I'm like, is she is
she doing anything?
Yeah. Yeah. Which was rare, but sometimes she just, she got really busy with some like real, I don't want to say real work, I'm real work, but like, bigger companies. So like maybe she forgot or whatever, but it's just when, I mean, she was mostly in touch to say when she could get to something, and that meant everything. Cause it was like, okay, I know it's getting done. I
Yeah.
can let it go.
Yeah. Well, we would like to hear about how you've cured your burnout, what you do to actually rest, what you think real rest is. And you can write to us. Where can they write to us, Maria?
You can write to us at 2nondoctors@gmail.com. That's the number 2 full word doctors@gmail.com. And thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.